Hello. One of the stories that I told for a lot of my adult life was that if it wasn't for my fucked up childhood, I'd be a lot better off. What I've since learned is that it doesn't matter how I was raised. I have aspects of who I am that I struggle with. In fact, I could have been raised by the angels themselves, and I'd still be an insane, obsessive mofo. Ain't nothing gonna help me with that. Greetings. This is Hug Me, I'm Insane, and my name is Perry Johnson. This episode is all about the blame game. Specifically, that person or those people that we have in our lives with whom we continually point the finger as being the problem, whatever the problem may be. I was traumatized by this parent. I was shamed by this teacher. I'm constantly held back by this boss. If it weren't for my overly needy partner, my life would be a lot easier. Whatever it is. This is what we call in mental health circles the blame game. And it's that mechanism where we are externalizing aspects of our thinking and belief systems that are problematic and assigning the blame for those on people outside of us, external to us. And in all fairness, we very well may have a boss who is a dickhead, and we may well have been raised by an abusive parent. And I'm not saying that those things aren't true. What this episode is about, however, is remaining in that story. Or a better way to put it would be to utilize that story as an excuse as to why we're not able to achieve the things that we want to achieve. And so the biggest challenge with the blame game is that, number one, it's inaccurate because, yes, bad things happen to us. And in all fairness, we have probably ourselves also participated in things that harmed others. And when we look at it from that vantage point, when those things were happening with those other people whom we were causing harm to, at that time, we were ignorant or innocent of the fact that we were doing that harm. Or we were cognizant of the fact that we were doing harm, but it seemed like the right thing to do nonetheless. So a good example of that is childhood bullying. I can't remember who said it, but there is this quote that says, children's games are anything but games. And being a kid is a good example because kids can be incredibly cruel. Equally, the boss who is an authoritarian dickhead or treats his or her employees in an unloving fashion is doing so because they feel that that's the proper way to lead. And so while it's one thing to have the understanding that that's what's going on intellectually, I can say, well, my boss is being a dickhead because that's what he knows. Emotionally, on a day-to-day basis, having to work with him is a different story. And so if that story keeps cropping up again and again, and I feel like I'm at this level and I want to level up to this level, and that this person, whoever it is holding me back, or things that I learned in childhood by way of a fucked up parent are holding me back, and if only this and if only that, well, then now I'm giving away my power to the story. I'm giving away my power to the story on a continual basis, like it's still occurring. And this is the tragedy of the blame game, is that we ourselves are ignorant of the fact that we give away so much of our power to this crutch, really. It's a way of saying, I'm never going to get past this point because there's something in my way, and so I'm going to just stay stuck. But really, what's going on is there's resistance, and the divine, the universe is asking us to level up and to take action. We just don't realize that we have choice. And so we ourselves are keeping ourselves stuck by remaining entrenched in the blame game. At the end of the day, it's incumbent on me to take action in order to shift that stuff. And there's a number of ways I can go in being proactive. I can leave the dysfunctional relationship. I can attempt to get help with my career or with my boss or with my partner. And I can certainly pursue counseling in terms of childhood trauma. And so the operative word there is I could do those things. And the convenient part about the story, if only this, if only that, is that now I don't have to take that action, which is hard. And so it's a little out. It's a little escape route. And if you think about anything in your life where it's like, oh, if only this were different or if only that were different, that is you engaging in the blame game and your brain in a very clever and tricky way keeping you stuck in resistance. Because there's always a way forward. Always a way forward. And so I know in my own life, these shifts don't happen until two things happen in my life. Number one is that I need to get honest about the fact that I am stuck and I am using these excuses, these stories to not move forward. And by the way, some of you out there may not have even given yourself permission to feel what you need to feel around some of these things that have happened to you. And so part of that process in shifting out of the story is to allow yourself to get angry. Some people, I was angry for years and years. I had no problem expressing my anger around my traumas. But some of you haven't even allowed yourselves that, and you need to go through those stages. And so it is a process. It's a process that's different from everybody, but the thing that I'm getting at here is that it's not something that we can do alone. And it's not even something that we can necessarily do with our bestie either, because they may not be equipped to be able to handle navigating those really old, emotionally explosive areas in a constructive way. Part of the challenge in doing that work is in re-traumatizing ourselves around going back to those times. And so you need somebody with a really good skill set who's going to be able to assist you in navigating that and to help you move through it in a healthy way. Our best friends aren't usually equipped for that. Our mothers are not equipped for that. And our partners a lot of the time certainly aren't equipped for that. And nor do we want to be putting that kind of emotional explosiveness onto them to have to navigate. That would just be cruel, really. Because unless your partner is a clinical psychiatrist or registered counselor or something like that, they're not gonna be able to deal with that. And so we have to know where to look. And for me, that was counseling and coaching and my support group. I had to be willing to invest time and money and energy into going in and uncovering those areas of my life that were holding me down and keeping me stuck. And the blame game is a really good example of that. It was a really important piece for me. And it brought me to the notion of forgiveness, which I really struggled with. I really, really had a hard time with forgiveness because I remember when somebody asked me, are you ready to forgive the people that have hurt you? And I said, why would I want to? Forgiving them is the same thing as saying it's okay what you did. And that was a misconception that I had. Forgiveness actually had nothing to do with the other person. And it certainly doesn't validate in any way the negative things that have happened to us. It doesn't excuse anybody else's behavior by any stretch. What forgiveness does is it allows me to move forward. It gets me out of jail. It gets me out of that blame game. Because again, anybody that's ever hurt me is doing what they think is right in that moment. There is no such thing as an inherently evil person. There are hurt people who will in turn hurt because they're hurting, and they want to show the world that they're hurting, and so they hurt back. It's a dysfunctional way of expressing their needs. But there is no evil. this is another convenience that we use because we love to have our monsters. We love to put our monsters up on the pedestal and say, look at that evil person. Ooh, oh my God, I'm glad I'm not like them. And it gives us, it's another surreptitious way of the ego pumping itself up. Well, at least I'm not that bad. I'm not evil. What's much more difficult is to understand that person's behavior. But anyways, I digress. What I do know is that moving past my own blame game stories have put the responsibility for my moving forward squarely in my own backyard. I now no longer leave that up to anybody else. It's not up to anybody else. For me to shift forward or to level up in any way is absolutely and 100% on me and nothing else. And if I'm encountering some kind of resistance, it's because there's more to look at there. If there's a shit ton of things getting in my way, that's not necessarily meaning that it's not the right way to go, but it could be meaning that it's not the right way to go. But there may be a much less resistant path that still gets me there that I'm not seeing. But I just know that staying stuck in that story that if only this and if only that, the coulda, woulda, shoulda, and all of that stuff, it just keeps me small. It nurtures my small self, my egoic self. And it gets in the way of the true desire of my big self, which is to expand my soul and to step further and deeper into love. And so I do the work on behalf of the big self while learning to love and nurture the small self. That's really what my journey's been about. So I'll leave it there. I hope you guys got something out of that. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.